At the time of the Security Council Resolution 1887, India responded to it, namely by total defiance, and also by announcing that it has now advanced its nuclear weapons program to the point where it can produce weapons with the same yield as the superpowers, the United States and Russia. I don't think that was reported here either. But in fact, also not reported was the fact that the Obama administration immediately assured India that the resolution won't apply to them. Well, you can't take any of this seriously, the posture about Iran's atomic energy program. I mean, it may be that Iran is planning to develop nuclear weapons, I don't know. But if they are, it can only be as a deterrent. I mean, the chances that Iran would ever use a nuclear weapon or even threaten to is minuscule. The country would be vaporized in 2 minutes. And crazy as the rulers may be, they have shown no indication that they're interested in being vaporized and losing their possessions. After all, they own most of the country. So whatever you think about them, they follow a more or less pragmatic program in their own interest. So this is, it's not serious. And in fact, just a couple of days ago, the United States announced that it's increasing what's called its missile defense program in the Gulf to defend the region against an Iranian attack. There's no threat of an Iranian attack. I mean, the U.S. intelligence, in fact, estimates that at so small you can't even think about it for perfectly obvious reasons. And furthermore, missile defense is understood on all sides to be a first strike weapon. Missile defense doesn't protect anyone from a first strike, but it could conceivably, if it ever works, protect people, some country from a retaliatory strike. So essentially, it's a first strike weapon. It says, if we want to attack you, we will, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's discussed by by strategic analysts openly on all sides. In fact, that's why the Hawks advocate it. They say it's a first strike weapon. That's what we want. Now, for Iran, I'm sure they can figure it out too, like everyone else can. That's saying, the United States is saying, okay, we're building up the threat to attack you. Now, the same is true when Israel sends its nuclear submarines through the Red Sea with the Egyptian agreement, the tacit agreement, into a position where they can attack Iran and not be detected, so it's an invulnerable attack. Now, that's another threat. The same is true when first the Bush administration, now Obama, sets up what they call anti-missile defense programs in Eastern Europe. Obama just announced that after having said they were going to change it, they just announced that they are placing them in northern Poland. A missile defense program in northern Poland is not going to stop a missile from Iran, even if there were any possibility that Iran might decide to commit suicide by sending a missile to Europe. It's a threat to Russia, and it is understood that way, and it builds up tensions. The threat, every American political candidate insists on making open threats against Iran, including Obama. All options are open, is the phrase, which means that we want to attack you with nuclear weapons, we can. It happens to be a violation of the UN Charter, which bars the use or threat of force in international affairs. The American people oppose it, but it's constant, and it's another weapon in the hands of Iranian hardliners. They say, look, we're under attack everywhere. We have to clamp down, and I presume the population will tend to accept that. People tend to huddle under the umbrella of power when they're under threat. So all of these policies and the rejection of the conciliatory gestures, yes, that is harmful. In fact, a few years ago, around, I think it was 2006, Iran entered into negotiations with the European Union, and in fact it suspended uranium enrichment for that period. The negotiations were to try to deal with the nuclear issue, and there was a bargain. Iran agreed, it appears, to stop enrichment of uranium, to which it is entitled, as everyone agrees, if the European Union could provide security guarantees. That is a guarantee against U.S.-Israeli attack. Well, the European Union couldn't do that because they can't stop the U.S. and Israel from threatening to attack. So the negotiations broke down and Iran returned to uranium enrichment. Well, if that's being followed in Iran, it presumably leads to the same conclusion. There's nothing we can do that will get the enemy, hated enemy, to withdraw the threats. So therefore, the most we can do is defend ourselves. And defend yourself means submitting to authority for much of the it may be not the right decision, but that's a standard reaction to threat. Countries under threat, people tend to submit to authority. It's true even when the threat is limited, mild. That's how harsh legislation gets passed in most countries. They concoct some kind of threat. And in this case, they don't concoct it because it's very real.
Okay. Let me talk about the speech that you had in the New York hunger strike. In your brief talk on the occasion of the New York hunger strike last July, in solidarity with the fallen and the political prisoner of the recent Green Movement, you said Iranian people have to deal with the very hard task of walking the fine line between opposing the brutal forces of a dictatorship and steering clear of the hegemonic designs of Iran's regional and international foes. Could you explain the context regionally and internationally within which Iranian people have to pursue this very hard task? What are the dangers? What could be the sources of possible strength to draw upon for people caught in this situation? From one hand, moving towards democracy, one hand, danger of falling to the
sources of strength are the Iranian popular movements. I mean, that's the main source of strength, and their courage and willingness to stand up for their rights has been quite inspiring under very harsh conditions. And I can't advise them on how to do that. That would be ridiculous. They know much better than I do how to proceed with that. There is the threat of converting the protest into a kind of weapon that can be used by those who only want to harm Iran. When the Ayatollahs and the clerics denounce the United States as the enemy that wants to destroy Iran, it's exaggerated, but it's an exaggeration of something quite real. After all, there is a history that for the last 55 years, there's practically not been a day when the United States hasn't been torturing the people of Iran. First was the overthrow of the Mossadegh government, the installation of the Shah, the support for the Shah's strong support for the Shah's tyranny, right up to the end. At the end, Carter was praising him for his love of his people and wonderful human rights record and so on. In fact, there have been a couple of reviews of Mansour Farhang and a couple of others have reviewed the American press on human rights in Iran. And right throughout the Shah's rule, there was essentially nothing